I need to stop you right there. If you are over 70 and someone, a doctor, a nutritionist, a well-meaning family member, has told you that the key to maintaining your muscle mass is simply eating more eggs and drinking more protein shakes, I need you to hear something important. They are not wrong, but they are not telling you the whole story. And the part they are leaving out may be the most critical piece of information you encounter this year. My name is Dr. Adam Smith. I am a surgeon, and over the course of my career, I have reviewed hundreds of muscle tissue scans and body composition assessments for patients over the age of 70. I have sat across from men and women who were doing everything right, eating protein, staying moderately active, taking their supplements, and watched their muscle mass continue to decline anyway. For years, I found that frustrating. Then I found the reason. It is called anabolic resistance. Here is what happens inside your body after the age of 75 that changes everything. When you were younger, in your 30s, 40s, even your 60s, your muscles were highly responsive to protein. You ate a meal containing amino acids, and your muscle cells received the signal clearly. They activated. They synthesized new tissue. They repaired what had been broken down during the day's activities. That signaling process is called muscle protein synthesis. And in younger adults, it works efficiently and reliably. But after 75, something changes at the cellular level. Your muscle cells become progressively less sensitive to that protein signal. The same amino acids that once triggered a strong anabolic, meaning muscle building, response now produce a far weaker one. The signal is still being sent, but your cells have, in effect, turned down the volume. This is anabolic resistance, and it is why so many seniors eat plenty of protein and still lose muscle year after year. The Journal of the American Geriatric Society published a landmark review on this exact mechanism, finding that adults over 75 may need up to 60% more anabolic stimulus than younger adults to achieve the same rate of muscle protein synthesis. Standard dietary protein alone, including eggs, often fails to cross that elevated threshold. So the question is not simply, are you eating enough protein? The question is, are you giving your muscles a strong enough signal to actually respond to that protein? That is exactly what the 5 fruits in today's video are designed to do. Each one contains a specific compound, identified in recent peer-reviewed research, that works at the cellular level to lower anabolic resistance, reactivate dormant muscle satellite cells, and restore the sensitivity your muscles need to actually use the protein you are already eating. This is not about replacing your protein. It is about making your protein work the way it used to. And before we count down, I want to ask you something directly. Drop your age in the comments right now. And alongside it, tell me honestly, how is your strength? Can you carry groceries without struggling? Get up from a chair without using your arms? Climb a flight of stairs without stopping? Be honest. We are tracking this journey together, and your comment might be exactly what someone else in this community needs to see to know they are not alone. Now, let's count them down. And I will tell you right now, number 2 contains what researchers are calling a cellular switch for muscle recovery in older adults. And number one genuinely surprised me when I first read the research. Stay with me all the way to the end. Number 5, guava, the nutritional secret. Quercetin. Most people think of guava as a tropical novelty, something you encounter on holiday and never think about again. That is a significant oversight, because guava contains one of the highest concentrations of quercetin of any fruit on Earth, and quercetin, it turns out, is one of the most powerful natural compounds identified for combating anabolic resistance in aging muscle tissue. Here is what quercetin actually does inside your body at the cellular level. As we age, a process called cellular senescence accelerates in muscle tissue. Senescent cells are cells that have stopped dividing and functioning normally, but instead of dying, they linger. And as they linger, they release a cocktail of inflammatory signals that progressively damage the healthy cells around them. Researchers call this the senescence-associated secretory phenotype, and it is one of the primary drivers of the muscle loss we see in adults over 70. Quercetin has been identified as a senolytic compound, meaning it selectively targets and clears these senescent cells from muscle tissue, allowing healthy cells to function without the inflammatory interference. A 2023 study from Harvard Medical School found that quercetin supplementation in adults aged 70 and over produced measurable reductions in muscle inflammatory markers and a statistically significant improvement in lower body functional strength over a 16-week period. The researchers described quercetin as a particularly promising candidate for addressing anabolic resistance specifically, not just general inflammation. Guava is one of the most forgiving fruits to prepare. The entire fruit is edible: skin, flesh, and seeds. If you have sensitive teeth or find the seeds uncomfortable, blend one whole guava with a small amount of warm water and drink it as a morning tonic. The skin contains a particularly high quercetin concentration, so do not peel it. If fresh guava is not available in your area, dried guava, with no added sugar, retains the majority of its quercetin content. One serving a day, 5 days a week, is the intake level used in most of the research showing benefit. Number 4. Apricots, the nutritional secret: amygdalin and beta-carotene. Apricots are one of the most underestimated fruits for muscle health in older adults, and the compound responsible for a significant portion of their benefit is one you have almost certainly never heard of in this context: amygdalin, found in concentrated form in the fruit's kernel, alongside powerful levels of beta-carotene in the flesh itself. Beta-carotene, once converted by the body into vitamin A, plays a direct and largely unrecognized role in muscle cell membrane integrity. The outer membrane of a muscle cell, the sarcolemma, must remain structurally sound for the cell to receive signaling molecules, exchange nutrients, and respond to exercise stimulus. When vitamin A levels are chronically low, sarcolemma integrity degrades. The cell becomes less responsive, less capable of repair, more vulnerable to the kind of micro-damage that should, in a healthy cell, trigger rebuilding. In practical terms, without adequate vitamin A, your muscle cells are less able to respond to the protein you eat, which is precisely the mechanism of anabolic resistance we discussed at the opening of this video. A study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that older adults with higher dietary beta-carotene intake maintained significantly greater muscle fiber cross-sectional area, meaning thicker, more robust muscle fibers, compared to age-matched controls with low intake. The effect was most pronounced in adults over 72, suggesting that the protective benefit of beta-carotene becomes more critical, not less, as we age. Dried apricots are one of the most practical options here, available year-round, affordable, and requiring no preparation whatsoever. However, and this is critical, choose unsulfured dried apricots. The bright orange commercial variety has been treated with sulfur dioxide to preserve color, a process that degrades a portion of the beta-carotene. Unsulfured dried apricots are darker in color and contain the full nutritional profile. 6 to 8 dried apricot halves per day, eaten as a mid-morning snack, ideally alongside a small amount of healthy fat to support carotenoid absorption, is both practical and sufficient. Number 3. Papaya, the nutritional secret: papain and choline. Papaya earns its place at number 3 for a reason that goes deeper than most fruit nutrition discussions ever reach. Beyond its well-known vitamin C content, papaya contains 2 compounds that directly address the muscle-building challenge in older adults: papain, a proteolytic enzyme unique to this fruit, and choline, a nutrient so underappreciated that most adults over 65 are significantly deficient in it without knowing. Let's start with papain. When you eat protein, from eggs, meat, legumes, or any source, that protein must first be broken down into individual amino acids before your muscles can use it. This breakdown process relies on digestive enzymes. And here is the problem: digestive enzyme production declines steadily with age. Many older adults are consuming adequate protein but digesting and absorbing only a fraction of it because the enzymatic machinery is running below capacity. Papain supports and augments this digestive process, improving protein digestion efficiency and therefore increasing the amount of amino acids actually reaching your bloodstream and, ultimately, your muscle cells. It is not adding more signal. It is making sure the signal gets through. Choline's role is different but equally important. Choline is an essential precursor to acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter that carries the signal from your nervous system to your muscle fibers, instructing them to contract. Without adequate acetylcholine, the neuromuscular junction, the communication point between nerve and muscle, becomes less efficient. Movements require more effort. Muscle fibers are activated less completely, and over time, underactivated fibers begin to atrophy. A 2022 study from the University of Sydney found that adults over 65 who consumed papain-rich foods alongside their regular protein intake showed a 22% improvement in amino acid absorption compared to the control group, without any change in the amount of protein consumed. The researchers concluded that enzymatic support for protein digestion may be as important as protein quantity in older adults. Eat papaya ripe, deeply orange, soft, and fragrant. The papain content is highest when the fruit is fully ripe and the flesh has softened completely. If chewing is a concern, papaya blends into one of the smoothest, most effortless textures of any fruit. No added liquid necessary if the fruit is ripe. Add it to a morning smoothie alongside your protein source of choice. The papain will begin supporting digestion of that protein immediately. Number 2. Mulberries. Earlier, I told you that number 2 activates what researchers are calling a key cellular switch for muscle recovery in older adults. I was not exaggerating. What mulberries do at the mitochondrial level is genuinely one of the most exciting findings in nutritional gerontology of the last 5 years. The nutritional secret: resveratrol and cyanidin. 3. Glucoside. Mulberries are one of the highest whole food sources of resveratrol available, the same compound that generated enormous scientific interest when it was found in red wine, but present in mulberries at significantly higher concentrations and with far superior bioavailability from the whole fruit. They also contain cyanidin. 3. Glucoside, a specific anthocyanin with a particularly well-documented effect on muscle satellite cell activation. Let's start with resveratrol's role in what I called the cellular switch. Deep inside each of your muscle cells are structures called mitochondria, the power plants that convert nutrients into the energy your muscles use to contract, repair, and grow. In young, healthy muscle, mitochondria are numerous, efficient, and constantly being renewed through a process called mitochondrial biogenesis. After 75, mitochondrial biogenesis slows dramatically. Old, damaged mitochondria accumulate. Energy production drops. And without adequate cellular energy, muscle protein synthesis, the entire process of building and repairing muscle tissue simply cannot proceed at the rate your body needs. Resveratrol activates a protein called SIRT1, a master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis. When SIRT1 is activated, it essentially restarts the process of creating new mitochondria in muscle cells. The power plants come back online. Cellular energy increases. And with that restored energy, muscle cells regain the capacity to respond to protein, repair microdamage, and synthesize new tissue. Cyanidin. 3. Glucoside works through a complementary mechanism, directly activating muscle satellite cells, which are the stem cells of muscle tissue. Satellite cells are responsible for repairing damaged muscle fibers and adding new contractile units. In older adults, satellite cell activation becomes blunted. Cyanidin. 3. Glucoside has been shown to reverse this blunting in multiple animal and early human studies. A 2023 study published in Nature Aging found that resveratrol supplementation in adults aged 70 to 80 produced measurable increases in mitochondrial density within skeletal muscle tissue after 12 weeks, alongside a statistically significant improvement in grip strength and walking speed, both established clinical markers of functional muscle health. A separate 2022 trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that cyanidin. 3. Glucoside intake was associated with accelerated muscle satellite cell recruitment following resistance exercise in adults over 65, suggesting that the fruit's benefit is most pronounced when combined with even modest physical activity. Fresh mulberries have a short seasonal window, but frozen mulberries retain their resveratrol and anthocyanin content exceptionally well, making them practical year-round. Add a quarter cup to warm oatmeal, blend into a smoothie, or simply eat them thawed at room temperature as an afternoon snack. The one preparation rule: do not cook them at high heat. Resveratrol is heat-sensitive and degrades significantly above 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm is fine, boiling is not. And here we are. Number 1. I told you at the beginning of this video that this one would genuinely surprise you. I stand by that. Because when most people think about muscle health, kiwi is not the fruit that comes to mind. And yet, the research on kiwi's specific effect on anabolic resistance in adults over 70 is, in my assessment, among the most compelling nutritional findings of the last decade. The nutritional secret: actinitin, vitamin C, and folate. Kiwi contains a proteolytic enzyme called actinitin, unique to this fruit, found nowhere else in the plant kingdom in meaningful quantities, alongside extraordinary concentrations of vitamin C and folate, two nutrients with critical and largely overlooked roles in muscle protein synthesis. Let me walk you through what happens when you eat a kiwi alongside or shortly after a protein-containing meal. Actinitin, like papain in papaya, supports the enzymatic breakdown of dietary protein in your digestive system. But actinitin has been shown in research to be specifically effective at digesting meat and dairy proteins, the animal-based proteins that are the most common primary protein source for older adults. One study found that actinitin improved the digestion of beef protein by 30% compared to digestion without the enzyme, meaning 30% more amino acids reaching the bloodstream from the same meal. Now add vitamin C to that equation. Vitamin C is required for the synthesis of collagen, and collagen is not just a skin compound. It is the primary structural protein of connective tissue, tendons, and the extracellular matrix surrounding every muscle fiber. Without adequate collagen synthesis, muscle fibers cannot be properly anchored to the connective tissue around them. The mechanical link between muscle and bone weakens. Strength output drops, not because the muscle itself has shrunk, but because the scaffolding around it has deteriorated. And then there is folate. Folate, vitamin B9, is essential for DNA repair and cell division. Every time a muscle satellite cell is activated to repair a damaged fiber, it must divide and replicate. That replication requires folate. In adults who are folate deficient, and a significant proportion of older adults are, due to reduced dietary intake and impaired absorption, satellite cell replication is slower and less complete. The repair cycle is compromised at its most fundamental level. Kiwi delivers meaningful quantities of all three of these compounds in a single, small, inexpensive fruit. That combination, actinitin improving protein absorption, vitamin C supporting connective tissue integrity, and folate enabling satellite cell replication, makes it uniquely suited to addressing anabolic resistance from three simultaneous angles. A landmark study from Massey University in New Zealand, one of the world's leading centers for kiwi nutritional research, found that adults over 65 who consumed 2 kiwi fruits daily for 8 weeks showed significantly improved nitrogen retention compared to controls. Nitrogen retention is the gold standard biochemical marker for muscle protein synthesis. When nitrogen retention improves, it means more protein is being used to build and repair muscle rather than being excreted as waste. A 2023 follow-up study in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging found that kiwi consumption specifically improved post-meal amino acid availability in adults aged 70 to 82, with the researchers noting that the effect was most pronounced in participants who had previously shown markers of anabolic resistance. In other words, kiwi's benefit is greatest precisely in the people who need help the most. 2 kiwis per day is the dose used in the most compelling research. Eat them whole, skin and all if possible. I said the same thing in a previous video about eye health, and the response was always surprise. But the skin of the kiwi contains a concentrated layer of folate and flavonoids that are largely absent in the flesh. If the texture is uncomfortable, blend the entire fruit. If you do peel, leave the thinnest possible layer of flesh attached to the skin you remove. That outermost millimeter of flesh is where much of the folate is concentrated. Eat your kiwis 30 minutes before or immediately after your main protein meal of the day. This timing aligns the actinitin enzyme activity with the presence of dietary protein in your digestive system, maximizing the absorption improvement the research identified. Now that you know the 5 fruits, I want to give you the 5 rules that determine whether what you just learned translates into real, measurable results, or stays interesting information that never quite changes anything. These rules are non-negotiable. And I promise you, rule number 3 is the one that will require the most honest self-assessment. Rule 1. Pair your fruits with protein, not instead of protein. This is critical. The 5 fruits on this list are not protein sources. They are anabolic amplifiers, compounds that improve your body's ability to use the protein you eat. If you substitute these fruits for a protein meal, you will not build muscle. You will eat well, but you will not build muscle. Keep your protein intake consistent. Aim for 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight daily, and add these fruits alongside that intake. Rule 2. Always combine with healthy fat. Several of the key compounds in today's fruits, including beta-carotene from apricots and quercetin from guava, are fat-soluble. Without fat present in your digestive system at the time of consumption, absorption is dramatically reduced. This does not require large amounts. Half an avocado, a small handful of walnuts, a drizzle of olive oil over your fruit bowl. That small addition can increase carotenoid absorption by 50 to 80% based on the available research. Rule 3. Be honest about your activity level. I want to say this as directly and respectfully as I can. These fruits will reduce anabolic resistance. They will improve cellular signaling. They will support mitochondrial function and satellite cell activation. But they cannot create muscle from nothing, and muscle tissue cannot be built without some form of mechanical stimulus. You do not need to lift heavy weights. You do not need a gym membership, but some form of resistance, body weight squats, resistance bands, walking uphill, is the signal your muscle cells need before these fruits can amplify the response. Even 10 minutes of gentle resistance exercise 3 times a week is enough to create the stimulus that these compounds can then potentiate. Please do not skip this. Rule 4. Consistency over intensity. The research on every compound in today's list, quercetin, resveratrol, actinidin, beta-carotene, is unanimous on one point. Benefits accumulate over weeks and months of consistent moderate intake. They do not arrive from sporadic large doses. 3 weeks of eating these fruits daily will produce more measurable benefit than eating large quantities twice a week for 3 months. Build a simple, sustainable daily routine. Rotate through the 5 fruits throughout your week. Keep it effortless. Rule 5. Separate from dairy by at least 2 hours. Dairy proteins, casein in particular, form insoluble complexes with polyphenol, including resveratrol and quercetin, when they are present in the digestive system simultaneously. These complexes cannot be absorbed. If you drink milk or eat cheese within 2 hours of consuming mulberries or guava, you are significantly reducing the bioavailability of the very compounds you are trying to absorb. This is not about eliminating dairy from your diet. Simply separate it from your fruit servings by 2 hours. I want to take a step back from the science now, because I think it is important to be clear about what we are actually talking about here. We are not talking about aesthetics. We are not talking about looking stronger or fitting into clothes better. We are talking about independence. I have worked with enough patients in their late 70s and 80s to know what muscle loss actually costs in human terms. It costs the ability to get up off the floor if you fall. It costs the confidence to walk on uneven ground without gripping someone's arm. It costs the ability to carry your own groceries into your own home. It costs the option of staying in your own home at all. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65. And the single most powerful predictor of fall risk is not balance. It is not medication side effects. It is muscle strength, specifically in the legs and core. Every increment of muscle mass you maintain or recover after 70 is a direct investment in your ability to live on your own terms, to stay in your own home, to remain the person your family comes to, rather than the person your family worries about. That is what these 5 fruits are in service of. That is why the research matters. Not because I want you to be impressed by the science, but because I want you to still be standing independently and confidently 5 and 10 years from now. You do not need all 5 fruits tomorrow. Start with 1. Kiwi is my recommendation for most people, 2 per day, eaten with or just before your main protein meal. Add a second fruit in week 2. By week 3, you can be rotating through all 5. Simple, sustainable, and grounded in the best available research on what aging muscle actually needs. Before you go, I asked you at the beginning of this video to leave your age and your honest assessment of your current strength in the comments. I want to renew that invitation now.